Today's reading can be found in Luke chapter 12, and I begin reading at verse 35. Be dressed ready for service and keep your lamps burning, like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will make them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the middle of the night or towards the daybreak. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Peter asked, Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone? The Lord answered, Who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose a servant says to himself, My master is taking a long time in coming, and he then begins to beat the other servants, both men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. The servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready, or does not do what the master wants, will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. This is the word of the Lord.
We all seem to be playing the waiting game at the moment. Waiting to return to work, waiting to go back to school, waiting to see our friends and family, waiting to get back to the gym or back to the allotment or back to Oriental Palace. We're waiting for things to return to normal, waiting. As Christians, we should be proficient at this. After all, in essence, what are we but a waiting people? We are waiting for our Lord Jesus Christ's return. And while we wait, we should wait as faithful laborers, not faithless layabouts. So it's my prayer that this sermon from September 2018 will both encourage and equip you as a believer while you wait for that big event, our Lord Jesus Christ's return. Gracious God, you know the weight of these words in Luke 12. You know how they should press upon our minds and our hearts and on into our lives. Lord, I, through my words, cannot give them the weight that they need in our lives, but you can through your Spirit to take what is spoken and plant it deep in our hearts and minds with lasting, transforming effect. So we pray that you will work mightily amongst us now by your word and Spirit. Amen. Please do be seated and do turn to Luke 12, page 1045 if you're using the Bibles on the seats. You've got that handout there that you may find useful. There's questions to take home and ponder afterwards. So I got the email notification. It arrived in my inbox. The slot for your parcel delivery by DPD is between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So that narrowed it down. Of course, I do realize that putting some time today is not going to drum up great business, and it doesn't sound fantastic, is it? But what other slot is there? 8 p.m. until 8 a.m.? I don't think so. So I committed myself to being around for the delivery of my precious parcel. But about 11 a.m., after 3 hours of waiting and jumping up every time you heard a van seemingly pull up outside your house, I realized that we'd run out of milk. Will I be able to survive the day without tea and coffee? Probably not. Can I risk popping to the shops? Absolutely not. Oh no, you can't chance it. We have to sit there prepared, waiting for the arrival of my precious package. And then you see him, the DPD man, walking towards your front door. It arrives, and it's like all your Christmases have come at once, until you find out that it's some Lego for your child for Christmas. Now, Luke 12 encourages us to live with that same kind of anticipation and eagerness and vigilance every day as we wait for Christ's return. You've waited in for a package, haven't you? It was only this morning someone said to me they wanted to put a doorbell on the door. They said, because we keep missing packages. We really want them, don't we? The packages, we'll sit in and wait for them. Something that we've ordered that's precious. Well, let me ask this question. How is your waiting for the Lord's return? How is it going? Because Luke 12, I think it's trying to get us with that kind of anticipation, that kind of eagerness. So if you were to analyze your routine activity, how you spend your time, how you spend your money, how you spend your energy, the kind of things that occupy your thoughts, get your attention, the kind of things that you daydream about, what would that analysis reveal about your readiness, your eagerness for the Lord's coming, for Christ's return? Because that's the issue that Jesus is addressing when he spoke to the disciples at this bit of Luke 12. Ready or not, Jesus is coming. Ever since the inception of the church, the birth of the church, that has been it. It's been this anticipation of the disciples. Remember what the angels said to the disciples in Acts chapter 1. Jesus had ascended into heaven, and the angels arrive and they say, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the heavens? This Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will come the same way as you saw him go into heaven." Disciples of Jesus, followers of Christ, are people who are ready and waiting for his return. So a good way to summarize the Christian's attitude as we wait is ready, steady, go. Now, that's a phrase that I got used to in primary school. Sports day at primary school. Every event, you were at the line and it was ready, steady, go, or on your marks, get set, go. We had ready, steady, go. And the whole idea of it is it's supposed to designed to get your heart and mind ready to sprint across the field, egg and spoon in hand, to certain victory. Ready, steady, go. That alertness, that readiness, that attention to go. And Jesus says of his disciples, they had to be ready to serve. But he doesn't give sports day imagery, but he gives the imagery of being dressed, ready for action, or keep your lamps burning. They're the images that he gives, and they're images of preparation, readiness. We're to be like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding feast so that we can open the door immediately and tend immediately to his needs. So let me explore those two images a little bit more. Verse 35, be dressed ready for service. Now, when Jesus says be dressed ready for service, this is more than don't get caught in your pajamas. Although it's not a bad thing not to get caught in your pajamas. And having now got to that period in my life where I can walk down Beresford Avenue and see a lot of students still in their pajamas at lunchtime outside their accommodation having a cigarette. Maybe don't get caught in your pajamas. It's not a bad way of translating and getting the point home. But what Jesus is actually saying, in the culture of Jesus' day, being dressed ready for service was about your garments being appropriately ordered in order not to hinder your work. What you sometimes hear called gird up your loins. Often this meant taking your robe, tucking it into your belt so that you could move quickly, so you could move easily. So you may remember Jesus himself when he was serving the disciples in John chapter 13, when he was washing their feet. He got himself ready. He took off his outer garments and wrapped a towel around his waist. He was ready for service, ready for action. Gird up your loins. And that is what Jesus is saying about his followers, his disciples. We have to be ready to serve. We've got to be alert so that we can spring into action for Jesus at any given moment. Be dressed for work. It's talking about an attitude that pervades the way that you approach life, that you're always ready to serve Jesus' purpose in the world. Now, I know some people get that privilege of working from home. I work from home, but I know lots of other people who are out in offices or wherever it might be, but sometimes you're allowed to work at home. And I know some people tell me, but when I do, it's brilliant because I get to stay in my pajamas. And I always think what that really means is you're not going to work as much as you'd intended to if you went to the office. It's more of a lounge around thing, isn't it? No, you get up and you get dressed because you're going to work. You're ready to serve. And that's what Jesus is saying here. That's the attitude that his disciples have. But the second picture is keep your lamps burning. Now again, this is in a day when there's no electricity, so no street lights, no lights in the houses. When it gets to the autumn and winter months, one thing that Laura always does, very kind and thoughtful, I forget to do, but she always does it. If I go out and I come in back in the dark, she always puts the porch light on. Always. Why? Well, it's the first sign of welcome, isn't it, when the porch light is on? But also, it allows Laura to see that it's me. So that as I'm taking my shoes off and putting my jacket up, it may result in the kettle being on before I've even got through the porch door. There's something about the light being on that is not only a welcome to the one who's coming, but it also alerts the person who's there for action, doesn't it? They can see and they're ready immediately to meet the need. And Jesus is talking about his people living with an attitude of anticipation and eagerness. If I was to summarize these two images, it would be with one of my favorite phrases, up and at 'em. Now, you might not know that. Maybe it's a Barnsley thing. My mum, I've got it from my mum. My mum used to come into the room. I'd be lying in my bed. She'd throw open the curtains, open up the window, even if it was winter, and she'd up and at 'em, up and at 'em. It means get up, get busy, get on with the day, get on with the project, get on with the task ahead of you. Hit life with some purpose, hit life with some drive, up and at 'em. Stop lying around. Make yourself busy. Make yourself useful. And Jesus is saying to his disciples, he says, look, you've got to be ready to serve. You've got to live with an attitude of up and at 'em. Make a difference for the kingdom. Have an impact for me in some way. Live a life that is driven, got some purposeful direction, contributing to kingdom work. So let me just ask you at this stage, does that describe your attitude to life? Because then we get this extraordinary turnabout. Because when the master arrives, there's an unexpected twist in the story. Those who have kept themselves ready to serve, verse 37, will be readily served. What Jesus says in verse 37 is completely out of place. Probably not for us as much, because we're soft, and the whole idea that those above us, those who are over us, ought to do something for us. We live in the namby-pamby West, don't we? So we'd expect that. But in this culture, the whole idea that when the master arrives, they should turn the tables, and he should serve them, and tell them that they can recline, is absolutely shocking. No, the story should end, ought to end. It's right and proper that it ends with the master reclining, the master laying back, and the servants running around busying themselves on him, no matter how hard a day they've had. So why? And why does Jesus put that in here, in this parable? Well, what a great motivation for the faithful servant to know that what their master is like. That he is a servant-hearted master who delights to bless those who are his servants. Surely that's somebody worth waiting upon, isn't it? Surely that is someone you can patiently and diligently serve while you wait for his return. You see, knowing what your master is like, knowing how your master treats his servants, ought to have a massive impact on what you're willing to do for the master. Isn't it true? Why are people so fond of the Queen? Why have you ever heard any servant say anything negative about her? I haven't. I'm sure that there is, but I haven't in all the time I've read. Why? Because she's a wonderful master. But you've heard some things say about some other kings, haven't you, and other rulers, are rotten and tyrants. And what Jesus promises here, let's just think about it a little bit more, is of great significance for us as servants in our waiting and serving of him. He basically says, look, those who have busied themselves with my business here on earth will be blessed by me in the age to come. We're reminded of the promise of the heavenly banquet where Jesus will prepare a place for his faithful servants. He will lavish upon them the richest of fare, Isaiah 55, the finest of wines, because they'll be blessed in his kingdom. Jesus is basically saying, look, those of you who've been ready at the door, that is the attitude that you've lived with, ready at the door for my return. You'll find not only an open door into heaven, but when you get there, I will lavish upon you. You will have this richest of fare. However, this doesn't mean that you can try and make everything ship-shape at the last minute. Isn't that what we do? I remember when my nan was coming to visit, the house had to be in a certain way. And our landing window looked down the road where she'd go off of the bus, and it used to take her about 7 minutes to walk from the bus. And we just used to have a little station, like one of us would be sent there. And right, when you see her come around the corner, we'll all start doing it then. So we'll all start tidying up. My mum wasn't very happy. That's what we used to do, leave it to the last minute. That's not what it's like with Jesus' disciples. Those ready to serve must be ready to serve at all times, verses 38 and 40. You see, it's not known when the master will return. It might come in the middle of the night. It may come near dawn. In fact, Jesus, he likens his return to a thief. Now, thieves come at unexpected times. In fact, they're less predictable than DPD and parcel force. The time of Jesus' return is not known. And Jesus tells us this so that we will avoid calculations about the timing of his return and instead live each day conscious with the truth of his return. Let me say that again. Jesus tells us this so that we will avoid calculations about the timing of his return and live consciously of the truth of his return. Notice, look at verse 40. Jesus is very clear. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. That great preacher, Charles Spurgeon, uses an analogy of his dogs to show how we should be expectantly waiting the master's return. He said this. He says, "This very moment I'm speaking, my dogs will be sitting inside at my front door waiting for my return. At the first sound of the carriage wheels, they will lift up their voices with delight because they know that their master is coming home." He said, "Oh, that we would love the Lord as dogs love their masters. And we should catch the sound of his coming and be waiting, always waiting, eagerly, happily, until we at last should see him." And then in wonderful Spurgeon style, he says, "Pardon me for using a dog as a picture of what you ought to be, but when you have attained a state above that, I will find a different illustration." We must be ready at all times. Now, a good way to summarize the Christian's actions, so we've thought about the Christian's attitude, the Christian's actions as we wait is to discharge your duty, verses 41 to 48. Now, Peter has a question for Jesus in verse 41, which really amounts to Peter saying, do we have to pay attention here, or is this message for other people? It's like one of those questions when you're a teacher and a pupil says, will this be on the exam paper? And what they really mean is, do I need to pay any attention to this? It's like Peter saying, oh, is this going to be on the exam paper for us, Jesus? If not, because we'll let it fly us by. And Jesus replies with a question of his own, verse 42. Who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? Jesus is saying, look, Peter, I'm going to tell you what it looks like to be ready. And everyone who professes faith better evaluate themselves against it, particularly you as well, who are going to be left in charge. And it means being a faithful laborer. We show ourselves ready by being faithful to the master's will, by doing what he expects in his absence. Doing the master's will. Okay, that's what we're to do. So we're to find out what pleases the Lord, because that's what we're supposed to be doing while we wait for his return. But let's just face it. Really, as part of this congregation, we know what pleases the Lord. We hear what pleases the Lord regularly in sermons, in Bible studies, in your own private reading of the Word. We know what pleases the Lord. The things that he delights in, the things that he wants us to be doing. It's not a mystery. Now, I don't think we should be purely thinking about the very second that Jesus returns. I remember people used to say, there is a good point to it, but people used to say, would you really want to be doing that when Jesus returns? Well, there's a lot of things that we wouldn't want to be doing when Jesus returns, but I don't think we're supposed to be narrowing down here. This is trying to get us to think, well, when Jesus returns, am I going to be sorry that I was there watching the latest Bond film rather than helping in a soup kitchen? Okay, that's not the kind of thing that's supposed to be going on in our heads. I think what we're meant to think is this. When the Lord returns and he asks to see the timesheet of our life, since we've been converted, is he going to look down that timesheet and say, oh yeah, there's a faithful laborer? I can see from your timesheet that you are a person who's been looking to please me. I can see from the hours that have clocked up and what you've been going about and your business and the things that you thought about and the things that consumed your minds and your daydreams that you were about my cause, you were serving my cause. I can see that you've put in the time working for me. I can see that you've even clocked up a lot of overtime. I can see that you've gone the extra mile beyond the call of duty in love. I look at your timesheet and I think, oh, there goes a faithful laborer who's put in the hours for me. And the opposite to that, it means that we mustn't be faithless layabouts. Notice what the servant says. My master is taking a long time in coming. See, what a wonderful thing, what a mercy from God for us 2,000 years on nearly from Jesus' ascension. See, this is exactly what's in our minds, isn't it? Jesus' delay leads to doubts, and the doubts lead to drunkenness. Do you notice that? Do you see that? Jesus' delay leads to doubts, and the doubts leads to drunkenness. Drunkenness being a picture for someone who is no longer alert, no longer focused, no longer driven. And Jesus predicted this would happen. We can take it as a symbol for us. See, there are many who claim to be servants of Jesus, disciples of Christ, but live in their lives in a way that just show that they're seeking to make everything about them and about their enjoyment. What they amount to is faithless layabouts. Now, I guess most of us don't think it's a good thing to be a layabout or a couch potato. But let me ask you a question. How many of us are sliding into being Christian couch potatoes? If Jesus was to return and he looks over that timesheet, rather than seeing a faithful laborer, he just sees a faithless layabout. Someone who hasn't really contributed anything to the kingdom. Oh, we thank Jesus for serving us at the cross. We look forward to being served at the great banquet. But we don't lift a finger now to serve his cause. Just faithless layabouts. You don't have to be sitting watching TV and eating Doritos in order to be a faithless layabout. So let me conclude to draw it all together. Jesus is not delayed, but he will come at the determined time that has been set. And when he comes, according to this teaching, he'll come with letters in his hand. Some of those letters will be given to people and contain, let's call them promotion. But others will be given letters that only speak of the prospect of their punishment. That's what it says, isn't it? Verses 44 and 46 to 48. Jesus himself, he will determine in him alone whether we've been a faithful laborer or a faithless layabout. His return is certain, unstoppable, guaranteed. Are you ready? Have you maintained faithful, passionate living for the Lord? Or have your hearts told you, well, the Master has delayed, and that delay has caused you to doubt, and doubts have crept in, and so you've given into that drunken kind of living, metaphorically, that it's just no purpose, no alertness, no attention, no eagerness. Or you live in a couch potato Christianity, not up to much, not achieving much, not actually really caring much. If that's you, actually, this is spoken as a loving warning to stay dressed for action. Keep your lamp burning. Live every day in expectation and anticipation of Jesus' return. And when he comes, we'll be blessed. We'll sit at the banquet table, life forever in the house of God. With those wonderful words of entry taken from another part of Jesus' teaching. Well done, good and faithful servant. Let's pray. Lord, keep us watchful, we pray. Give us that eagerness, that readiness of attitude, that diligence to discharge our duty as servants of Christ. May we, Lord, have that loyalty and that love for you that makes us excited about your return and eagerly awaiting it, that we might be with you, our wonderful servant-hearted King. Amen.